Nobody wants to say this out loud, so nobody does. But every economist who has studied this long enough arrives at the same uncomfortable place. Poverty is not a failure of the economic system, it is a feature of it. Remove it entirely and the system does not improve, it breaks. Here is why. Chapter 1. Poverty creates the labor that the economy runs on. Every modern economy is built on a pyramid. At the top, capital, ownership, returns. At the bottom, labor, essential, abundant, cheap labor. The system requires people who will do the difficult, dangerous, and unglamorous work for wages that do not make them rich. Agricultural work, sanitation, construction, care work, logistics. These sectors do not struggle to find workers because the work is appealing. They find workers because the alternative, having no income at all, is worse. Economist Herbert Gans identified this in his landmark 1972 analysis. He called it the positive functions of poverty. His argument was this: the poor ensure that society's dirty work gets done, not because anyone chose this arrangement deliberately, but because the arrangement sustains itself. If every worker could afford to refuse low-wage, high-risk, low-status work, those jobs would have to pay more, significantly more. The cost of food, infrastructure, sanitation, and care would rise across the entire economy. Poverty suppresses that cost, quietly, permanently. Every time you buy something cheap, something invisible made it possible. Chapter 2. Poverty creates the anxiety that drives productivity. Here is a question that economics has never fully answered. What motivates people to work extremely hard? The comfortable answer is ambition, passion, purpose. The honest answer, backed by decades of behavioral research, is fear. Specifically, the fear of falling. Behavioral economists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky demonstrated through their research on loss aversion that people are significantly more motivated by the prospect of losing what they have than by the prospect of gaining more. Losing $100 hurts approximately twice as much as gaining $100 feels good. The implication for labor is profound. Workers do not merely work for what they want, they work with the intensity they do because of what they are terrified of becoming. Poverty, visible, proximate, real, is the floor that makes the fall feel tangible. Remove the floor entirely, guarantee every citizen a comfortable existence regardless of effort, and you remove the primary driver of the anxiety that produces exceptional output. This is not a moral argument, it is a mechanical one. The engine runs partly on fear. Remove the fear, the engine slows. Every universal basic income pilot program has grappled with this, not because recipients became lazy, but because the urgency changed. And urgency, manufactured or real, is what the current system runs on. Chapter 3. Poverty justifies the system that produces it. This is the most uncomfortable part. Poverty does not just serve the economy functionally, it serves it ideologically. As long as poverty exists, the story of individual success becomes possible. The self-made narrative requires a contrast class. You cannot have a story of rising without a floor to rise from. Sociologist Melvin Lerner's just world hypothesis showed that people have a fundamental need to believe the world is fair, that people get what they deserve, that outcomes reflect effort and character. This belief is not a passive observation, it is a psychological necessity. Because if outcomes are random, if poverty can happen to anyone regardless of effort, the system loses its legitimacy. The presence of poverty and the narrative that it reflects individual failure keeps the social contract intact. People accept enormous inequality not because they are uninformed, but because they believe they are one good decision away from escaping it. And they believe that because the story requires them to. Economist Albert Hirschman called this the tunnel effect. People stuck in a non-moving lane of traffic tolerate the wait as long as the other lane is moving, because movement in the other lane signals that their lane will move too. Poverty keeps the other lane moving, which keeps everyone in their lane waiting. The question is not whether poverty serves the economy. The data answers that clearly. The question is whether an economy that requires poverty to function is one worth keeping. That question has no comfortable answer.
which is probably why nobody asks it.